Ladies and gentlemen, as if life couldn't get any better, it's time once again for the Pipe Podcast with my man, Crispin, Cruz, and the Deej. I can't believe they're letting us do this again. Isn't this awesome?
It's so awesome.
I can't believe it. Hey, why don't you tell everybody what the Pipe Podcast is?
Why do you keep pushing that over to me? I already know.
You won't remember.
I know. It's prospecting.
Yes.
We talk about sales initiatives. We talk about sales process, and we talk about experiences. That's what we talk about.
You nailed it. And it should be fun the whole way through.
That's right.
We're finally back together again.
Finally.
I know.
After all this time.
It's been a long time.
It has been. Welcome back.
Well, you know what? Did you actually get better looking?
No. If anything, older and fatter, especially with this with the name that will not be said.
Oh my God!
This whole thing with the name, the virus, the virus that shall not be named.
Yes.
I have gotten definitely fatter. I put on. I call it the Crispin 19 now.
Oh,
is what I call it. Yeah.
It's like it's nearly impossible to pass by the refrigerator without checking if something new's in there. You know?
The refrigerator or the pantry. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, the pantry's
Are you a snack type of person?
Am I a snack? Yeah. Does it look like I've ever missed a snack?
Well, I don't know. I mean, because like my wife, for instance, she's not big on snacks.
Right.
Actually, I'm going to just veer away from that entire topic myself. I'm not big on snacks, but like I'll eat meals like dinner.
Right.
It's inhuman the amount of food that I can consume in one sitting.
I know. I just don't get it. Well, so here's my problem is that I have terrible eating habits. So I won't, when they say breakfast is the best meal of the day, skip it. Have a cup of coffee, and then they say, well, you got to have a good healthy lunch. Skip it. I don't have time for lunch, because I work through lunch. Anybody that takes lunch, they're a bunch of wimps.
Oh yeah, remember that lunch is for
lunch is for wimps.
Well, lunch is for losers.
There you go. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And so then I have this ginormous meal. Like it's like from the 17th century when those plates that would have like half a pig
turkey
and like and all that, and I'm just like gorging myself for dinner.
But you said something interesting, and you said you got into that habit.
Yes.
So it's just a habit. It's
That's
not
right.
like you really need. You're not starving to death.
And it's a bad habit.
It's just a habit.
That's right.
Just like prospecting.
That's exactly right. And funny that you should say that because our topic today is the number one sales mistake small business people or owners makes that bleeds them dry, that bleeds them dry. Now, you can take that a bunch of different ways, right?
Yeah. But only one. You got to have the one mistake that
they make that bleeds them dry. And there's so many.
I know.
It's like a whole laundry list.
But there is one that's more important than the others.
And tell me what you think.
And it's in my side, and you could give your answer, but I'll give mine.
Can I give mine?
Eventually, but I'm rolling. Absolutely. Okay, give yours, and then I'll blow it out of the water when you're done.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go first.
Okay.
No, because you said you started. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
In my mind,
yeah.
There's an old adage with business.
Okay.
That people tend to forget. When they first get started, they know it.
Mm-hmm.
They know that the definition of a business is having a customer. And so all they do is just do whatever they need to do. They wake up and get a customer. There comes a point in somebody's business career when they kind of lose that fire and start focusing on other things. So the number one thing that bleeds them dry is forgetting the fact that if you're not growing, you're shrinking.
Right.
If you're not climbing, you're sliding. There's no in between.
Right.
The biggest problem is when someone says, you know what, we're all set. Or when the goal is to be all set.
Yeah.
Because you're never all set.
Yeah.
You're either climbing or you're sliding. That's my number one. What's yours, Crispin?
You know what? I want to explore that a little bit before we go into mine because I got to tell you, first of all, it's genius.
Brilliant.
Like you, Dan Jourdan, the sales energizer, Dan Jourdan.
That's right.
Because it is brilliant. And you're right. If you're not continuing to grow your business and you're not hyper focused on growing your business at every minute, because attrition is a real thing. I mean, that's something that impacts every single business across the whole world, is attrition. As soon as I remember I was working for this company and we landed the biggest piece of business that this organization has ever seen. It was a $1 million piece of business. Okay.
I love that phrase, a piece of business.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's a whole big thing there.
But there's a piece of it. Yeah. So then you know what happened? We celebrated. Of course, everybody was excited about it. We were, trying to figure out, okay, how we're going to deliver this thing. All this stuff, right? All those things that go through your mind. But we actually won, the piece of business. We actually got it, right? So
I don't even know what it is, and I'm excited.
So So after all of this. After all the celebration and everybody, I think even the at that time, the founder, this is maybe back in the day, but the founder had a little bar in his, in his office, and we actually had a drink, like we cheersed over. I mean, that was exciting for the company, right? And it's exciting for the founder. So that happened on like it was a Friday or late in the week, like a Thursday or a Friday. Mm-hmm. So over the weekend, and I check my email, messages, all this stuff. All the way, boop, I see this little meeting notice come up, and it's me and the founder, and he wants me, in his office, 9 a.m., to talk strategy, business strategy, right? And I'm like, okay, well, that sounds cool. That sounds good. So I accept the meeting, and I'm like, it's kind of weird because he didn't normally send meeting notices, on the weekend, right? But sure enough, Monday morning, 9 a.m., I'm in his office with my pad of paper. We just had this big, huge win, and everything's good. And he sits down, and he says, Chris, he said, did you celebrate any over the weekend, that we brought in that big account? I said, yeah, of course. His name's Chad. I go, sure, Chad. Yeah, of course. He goes, well, let me ask you. He goes, what's our plan to replace it?
Ooh.
And
that's good.
And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, we've got to start thinking about plans to replace that business because it's not going to be with us forever. And knowing that we just closed the biggest piece of business in the history of this company, we got to keep growing and we got to keep moving forward. And so then when we don't have that piece of business any longer, it's not going to impact us.
That's right. Because before you had that piece of business, someone else did.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And now they're sweating right now because they lost that whole thing. And that's what's the good part and the thing to be concerned about is that things are always changing.
Yeah.
Every day, someone's being born, someone's dying, someone's moving, someone's getting married, someone's getting divorced. It's happening every single day, and life changes are happening, and that's both something that could affect your business, but it's total opportunity.
Right.
Right. That stuff is going on.
That's right. So let me ask you this. I mean, easy to say, okay, you got to keep growing or you're dying. You got to keep doing this or that, blah, blah, blah. But how do you do it, Dan? I mean, how do you do it when real life is happening all around you? Changes, there's negative impact. There's all these things that are going on. How do you keep that focus? How do you keep that fire to really continue to, grow?
Yeah, well, every once in a while, you pass by the mirror.
Which means?
Which means if you're eating like we started this with eating, you see, everything comes around. Back
it does, yeah,
doesn't
it? Okay.
So when you start this thing, when you're eating too much, every once in a while you're going to look in the mirror and you're like, what the heck just happened?
Right.
Every once in a while you're going to look at your business and like, we're at risk.
Yeah.
We got 2 or 3 big accounts. We're at risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what keeps you going, and what makes it all better, and what makes you not have that issue, is creating good habits. Mm-hmm. Creating good habits of prospecting. Personally, me, I'm a big cold call guy. I love it.
Well, wait. Now, LinkedIn says, LinkedIn tells me every day that cold calling is dead, Dan. I mean, we don't have to do cold calling anymore. Cold calling is dead.
Yeah, well, I that's fine. Let them say that. But here, LinkedIn gets you just so far. It gives you a name. It gives
Right.
you a company name. It gives you all this stuff. But having all that information and doing nothing with it is like not having any information. It's like the same thing.
Right.
My mom used to say, because I never would read as a kid.
Okay.
Which was horrible for her because she was like a librarian. And so like her whole life, I knew the Dewey Decimal System before. Do you even know, Ingrid, do you know what the Dewey Decimal System is? No, you see, it was what before computers. Remember those catalog,
Right.
Anyway, so I never read. So my mom came to me once, she says, Danny, if you don't read,
Yeah.
you're no better off than the person who doesn't even know how to read. So having all that information from LinkedIn and Schminkton and everything out there, and I'm a big fan of LinkedIn.
Right. You're such a big fan, you just called it Schminkton.
Yeah, Schminkton, yeah. But once you get a name,
Right.
if you just do the little extra habit forming thing and pick up the darn phone
Yeah.
and call the person,
Yeah.
you're just ahead of like 99% of the rest of the people that are putzing around on their little in-mail garbage.
Yeah, but so here's the thing, though. I mean, Dan, easier said than done. Again, there are lots of.
It's not that hard.
But it's not that hard for you. But there's a lot of salespeople out there where that phone feels like an 800-pound gorilla, and when they lift it up, it takes every ounce of energy for them to put it on their ear because they're so afraid. They have this this inner fear of rejection. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I'm going to sound like a cold caller. I'm going to sound like a telemarketer. I'm going to sound like this. What are they going to? It's going to impact the brand in a negative way. All these things, what I call excuse making. But listen, I mean, that's a real thing.
Oh, absolutely, it's a real thing. And you know what else is a real thing? When you're a little kid and you don't have the strength to pull the freezer door open because the suction is too great. And so you pull your hardest, and it's hard to do it, but you pull, you know why? Because there's ice cream in there. And you want the ice cream.
Right.
And so you figure out a way to put your foot against the other door and you jam the thing open so you can get your eye. When the goal is big enough, and I'm saying to the business owners that we deal with and the companies that we deal with, the goal of success is, and the salespeople that are for these companies, to reach the success that they're looking for right now, it's worth it to create that habit.
Right.
And that's what we got to help people do. It's just worth it to create that habit. And the fact of the matter is, it's not like I'm asking you to go, on the front lines of the Western Front in a ditch with mustard gas. I'm saying pick up the phone and take your pointer and you dial some numbers.
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
That's what it is.
I understand. That's the hardest thing for people to do. But why would I want to do it? Because if I'm just going to, listen, if I make 100 calls today and I get a very low percentage, I'm saying 100, can you make 100 effectively? Probably not. I can see people, tagging on the bottom of those, you can't make 100 calls. Okay, I get that. I just used 100 as an example. All right, we'll say 50. Let's say I make 50 cold calls today. Okay, so I already know I'm going to have a low percentage of people that I'm going to actually get in contact with. I already know that I'm going to have a low percentage of people that actually want to have a conversation with me. Why do I want to put myself through that aggravation? Why do I want to do it? Help me understand, why should I even be doing it?
Yes, for the habit. It's the same thing. It's the number one thing people need to do. It's the habit. Yeah. Each morning I wake up and I call for an hour. If people would just do that for an hour, prospect an hour a day. My best time is early in the morning because that's when I'm baddest. And so I do that early in the morning, and it's not for them. It's for me. So later in the day, I'll give you an example. Just yesterday. Yesterday I was kind of off my game. I called for the hour in the morning, but
Dan Jourdan off his game. Come
it happens.
on, man.
I was less than 100%. It's hard to believe, but I was something less than 100%.
Yeah.
And you could hear it in my voice. So it didn't go well. It didn't go poorly, but I muscled through it.
Gotcha.
And then I went on for the rest of the day. Late in the afternoon, I got a phone call from someone, and it was something completely unrelated. Someone I hadn't spoken with in years. I didn't call them or anything like that, but an opportunity came. I believe that's connected. Because when this person called, I was already warmed up. I was already ready. I've already given the pitch several times. I'm ready to go right now. It wasn't a surprise how I was going to react.
Awesome.
Practice, drilling, and rehearsing. It's the habit of knowing what to say when they don't want. It's what's going to get you the sales from the people when they do.
Practice, drilling, and rehearsing. God, I mean,
Was those the lines that I used?
are we giving? I mean,
it's magic.
Here's the sad truth. We're giving this stuff away for free. I mean, we should be charging people just to be able to access this podcast. That's how valuable it is.
But the thing is, everything's out there already. I think, have you ever read Proverbs? For crying out loud?
Yeah, I have,
it was written years ago. Everybody knows what to do. So I'll put the question to you.
Okay.
If everybody knows what to do, and I'm assuming you agree with that. If you don't, I don't care. Assuming people know what to do already, because this isn't earth-shattering, why don't they do it?
Excuse making comes to mind. I mean, they can't get out of their own way. I mean, we have been, we've helped companies really transcend, and I'll use that word specifically because it's that much of a metamorphosis. I mean, where they have continued to do the same thing over and over and gotten the same result, and they're sitting there beating their head against the wall trying to figure out, why do we do it? Why do we continue to do that? And what we're showing them is, well, here's the lack of process. Here's the lack of tools that you've had in the toolbox. You've known, to your point, you knew how to grow this business to get it to this point, and now you really can't take it any farther. So we need to take those things that you did really well, right? And we need to figure out how we can still manage those processes in that way and institute, that success in a way that makes sense for the organization. But you've kind of lost your way. I mean, and so we help them discover that, right? But when you talk about like how do you get them to actually perform those? We don't call them KPIs. We don't call them key performance indicators.
What do you call
them? We call them KBIs. Key behavior indicators. Because we're trying to drive the right behaviors to get the right result.
That's right.
That's
right. And that's a big challenge for people, because you're doing something for a long time one way and it worked for you to a point.
Right.
And then you find out that you're at risk. And it really is terrible when someone's at risk to 2 or 3. This situation we're going through right now with this virus that shall not be named.
Yes.
There's going to be tons of businesses that go out of business.
Right.
Because they lost 1 or 2 of their major accounts.
I'm going to give you...
And that's all they had.
I'm going to give you another idea.
Another idea?
As
if you didn't give me enough.
Because here's the thing. I believe they just needed one more reason. They just needed one more excuse to hang up the hat. And I think this virus that shall not be named just gave them the opportunity to do that. Like they were saying already before this happened, if this happens, or if this happens, or if this happens, we're probably just going to close our doors. Now at least they have the freedom, to be able to say, it was this whole pandemic thing,
I think there's something to that.
I'm telling you that these are and I truly believe the businesses that are shuttering their doors now, they just needed a reason. They just need an excuse, because the clients that we're working with and for today through Sales Arbiter, they are fighting for every dime. They're out there.
It's like day one again. The fire is there, and it's like day one.
And they are saying to themselves, there is no better time right now than to do all of these things, so when the economy rebounds, we're ready. and they are the true definition of entrepreneur. You take all of our clients and you look it up in the Webster's Dictionary, if there was still a Webster's Dictionary that existed today, and you could actually see the name of all of our clients underneath the word entrepreneur, because that's the way they believe, that's the way they think. They're not going to let anybody or anything stop them from garnering more success, whether this pandemic is happening or not.
Well, that's true, because there is a life cycle of entrepreneurs and business owners where you start out with, hell be damned, we're going to figure out how to make this thing go. And they start growing, they grow to a little bit. And then there's a cycle in a business cycle, and you grow for, let's say 5 or 7 years, things are good. Then there's a lull for a little while, and you got to ride through that. Mm-hmm. And then you go through another big one. And what happens is, it comes a point, competition comes in, things change, technology changes, things change. And the business owner realizes, to get past this, we're going to have more investment right now, either in people or in technology or in something or a change of thought, or it's too much and maybe it's time to sell. And that's what happens. And they start having that thought. And if they have that thought that I'm just going to ride this out until this is here, and then I'm going to sell in 2 years, and then something like this happens, an event that causes them to rethink their entire future, mm-hmm. It's easier for them to close and shutter the doors than it is to push through that extra effort.
Yeah.
But there are companies that we can work with that just by putting in these systems and processes of sales and continual growth, that the owner could, in essence, remove themselves from the company and live a life of semi-retirement and still have the business continue running.
That's right.
And rocking and rolling.
That's right.
It's just putting in those plans.
We're doing that with a bunch of clients too.
And that's the greatest thing. Yeah. When the guys, and you can't keep them out. They think, oh yeah, I want to get out of the business, I'm working too hard. But once they get to that point, they're like pulling their hairs out. Like, what do I do? Let me get involved somehow.
Right.
Or they go fishing.
So I'm gonna tell you what, and now I'm gonna give you my answer.
Oh, really?
Because
it took you long enough.
It took me a little while. But I'm gonna say the number one sales mistake that small business people and owners make is they stop believing. They stop. I think that right now, especially in this, in this world,
in what?
They stop believing in the opportunities that are available to them to grow their business. They stop believing that they can continue to, even through some of the most tumultuous times, that they can continue, that they have what it takes. They have the grit, of what it takes to actually to continue to grow their business and to continue to, to break through those barriers. I think it has a lot to do with their belief system.
Yeah, it's tough for a $1 million company to grow to 5 and not kind of get stuck there.
Right.
Yeah, because they can't believe that they can go to 10 or 20 or 30 or 50.
And it's ironic because they thought that there were no issues when they thought they could go from 500,000 to $1 million to 5 million. But they didn't really think past, the $5 million mark, or they really didn't think past even the $10 million mark, right? They said, "Oh yeah, I should be able with everything that's going on. We've got a client like that now, the client's at 2.5, $3 million. I mean, he's literally sitting on a $20 million business. I mean, and we're going to help him get there because He could see it at 250,000. He could see it at 500. He could see it at $1 million. He just couldn't see it at 20 million. I mean, and we're helping with those pieces of clarity too.
Yeah, that's because he was so good at this. One of the things that happens for someone who has natural ability, and this person you're talking about does.
Yes.
Is that they convinced themselves, let's go out on our own and do this because I can do this and I can grow to a certain level. But then the business kind of outgrows your shadow, and there it is. And so, your shadow, that's as far as you can see, but the business is a little bigger. And so you're just fighting with yourself to try to keep doing it all yourself.
Right.
And for it to get to multiple levels above, you absolutely have to change the way you do that. You can't teach someone else to teach your natural ability.
No.
You've got to put in systems in place to get that rolling.
And
no one's better than you with that. I got no patience for that garbage. I want to get in and out.
Right. Right.
No, I do. That client you're talking about is a great friend. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And I am going to go fishing with him.
That
guy can fish. I tell you what.
He's a good guy.
He's a machine.
So here's the other thing, being honest with yourself. When you talked about looking in the mirror. Okay, some people look in the mirror and they see that whether I'm 20 or 30 pounds heavier, I see the same person. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be.
That's what they made wives for.
Well, yeah. Well, she helps with that too. Don't get me wrong. So, but I got to tell you, it's being able to say as a business owner, as a president of the company, entrepreneur, CEO, whatever your title is, founder, whatever it is, to be able to say, hey, here's my weak spot. This is where I'm not so good. Or here's where I'm wearing so many different hats with this organization that I really need to find someone to fill that gap.
Well, what they say is, if I could only clone myself. People love saying, if I could only... Two things people always say about their business. If I could only clone myself, and, our business is very specialized.
So yeah. Our product and service, nobody offers this what we do.
Nobody understands this. We're a very specialized market.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, and how do you get new business? Through referrals.
Yeah. Which is a fancy way of saying we don't get much new business.
We don't get business, and we don't prospect, and we don't cold call, and we don't do. Right, because we get referrals.
Yeah, we don't have to. We get that.
We've grown this whole business through referrals.
And then, the world explodes every 7 years.
Yeah.
And they're like, I gotta sell, and they wonder why they don't get top dollar.
Or I just got to put the name. I just got to put the close sign on.
So that's it. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. We're in the same place.
We are.
You thought that you were going to bring something new and revolutionary to what I said.
Yeah.
But it turns out.
I'm on your coattails again. I'm on your coattails again, Dan.
No, listen, it's not easy being Deej.
I know that's true. I know that's true.
Well, I think it's about time that we conclude and wrap this up.
Okay, any last thoughts?
Let me give you some last... Why don't you start with...
You want me to start this time?
Yeah.
All right. I think that, I think there are a lot of mistakes that small businesses and owners make, and because we're uncovering those throughout, our time with them. I want, if there's one thing that I would want anyone that's listening to this podcast to take away from, it would be this, is that it's also important to make the mistakes. When we talk about identifying what the number one mistake is, there's so many that I see in businesses, and whether they're just, and I don't even know if I like calling them mistakes. Maybe I just like calling them learning moments, because every single time that the entrepreneur or the business owner has run into a challenging situation, we're forced to think on our feet. We're forced to have to, to have to fix the plane while it's in flight. A lot easier to fix the plane when it's on the tarmac, right? But we're forced as entrepreneurs and as business owners to actually, the 747 is going at 400 miles an hour, and we got to get out on the wing and tighten down that bolt so we can freaking land. We live in that place every day. And so I think, just remember what you signed up for. Remember, why you started the business and why you were passionate about it, and realize that there's people out there that can help you, whether it's getting the right resources to fill, those weak spots in who you are or what the company has become. That's what I believe will really help companies, in the long term.
I think that's strong.
Yeah?
Yeah. I almost don't want to upstage you.
Please do.
All right, here we go. That was really good. I actually, while you were saying it, I was reminded of a story when I was a kid. I used to play lacrosse. Have you ever played lacrosse?
No, yeah, I've watched it.
Lacrosse was like the game that the football players would play on the off season.
Yeah.
because not only can you be violent, but they actually gave you a weapon.
Yeah, that's nice.
So it was
That's
a big
nice.
thing.
That's nice.
So these guys were crazy, and I wasn't big enough to be a football player, though I did play. I played lacrosse. In any event, as a freshman, I would play, and in the practice field, which was kind of really far away from the changing room, and there was nothing these guys liked better than wait for you to get all the way out on the practice field when you're a freshman, strip you down naked, and have you run back naked to the school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so you have to go to the changing room and all this stuff. And
I don't think you can do that anymore.
no, but I remember I walked out that one day and I realized it was my lucky day.
Oh.
And yeah, they were coming after me. And so I took off and I ran. And I looked back and to my fear, the fastest kid on the planet, Mike Schoenhaus, was chasing after me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. And I'm running, and he's catching up to me, of course. And I'm terrified because, when I'm a freshman, I was a little, as you would say, underdeveloped. And so you can imagine the fear. And so I'm running, and finally I say, if I could just get over this fence. So I jumped over the fence, and I just kept on tearing. Mike Schoenhaus is catching me, and then I see a tree. I'm going to climb up. I don't know what can do. And after a while, I just looked back, and I realized that Mike Schoenhaus didn't go over that fence. That was like where he stopped.
Oh.
And I realized then, everybody quits. Everybody quits. Not the Dij. I vowed at that point, if I'm going to run, if I'm going to do this adventure, if I'm going to start this business, I know for a fact that as soon as there's any obstacle in the way of my competitors, they're going to quit before me. And if business owners could understand that their competitors, how strong they appear right now, in any time of trouble and stress, they will quit. If you vow not to, you'll be standing there at the end.
Love it.
First string.
Great.
Just nailed it, didn't I?
Top notch.
I know, that's what
Top
it is.
shelf, brother. Top shelf.
This has been awesome.
It's been great.
We got to do this again.
Dan Jourdan.
We'll see you next time. Are we allowed to shake hands?
I think so.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Go
Thanks.
get them today.
All right.